Each and every one of us sometimes needs a piece of advice, right? Fair enough, but how we can be sure that it is correct and will help us to complete our goals? The reality is that we cannot until we try it, and then it might be too late. In this video now, I'm going to list the top 5 bad motorcycle travel advice that I have heard in the last 10 years. So if you have nothing to do, grab your favorite drink and stay with me. Welcome back. After everything that I told you in the intro, you might stop me here and say, listen Pavlin, only the time will show us who was right or wrong. And this will be a right statement. I completely agree with this, but do you have this time? What about if you only have 2 weeks holiday and somewhere in the middle of the holiday you realize that the advice that you've been given was wrong and everything starts to fall apart? Fair enough, you might say, I can live with it. Yes, you can, I'm sure you can, but a bad advice can put you also in real trouble and even cost your own life. Before I list the top 5 bad pieces of advice that I have promised, I would like to tell you something very important. Please remember it. What works for one person does not make it automatically universal for everyone. The only way to check is it right or wrong is to see the reality around you. I know that this might sound a little bit confusing now at the moment, but I promise that it will make sense later in this video. The idea to travel around the world all the time, it's very interesting and everybody loves it when you stay at home next to the heating on your sofa, but the reality is completely different. At the moment outside is 1 degree and we have something between rain and snow. So want or I don't want, I have to face the reality and wait for better days. So let's finally start with the top 5 bad pieces of advice that I have promised. Number 1. BMW GS is the ultimate travel machine. Especially models like 1200, 1150. They are simple, reliable, air-cooled, affordable, they've got drive shaft and you can load a lot of luggage, right? But let's now see the reality. First of all, this myth comes again from Ian McGregor and Charlie Borman and the Long Way Round series. They have done this world trip with BMW GS 1150. We all know that, but what many of you purposely miss is that they have an entire crew and unlimited budget to do it. Even so, one of their bikes broke down and needed to be replaced with Ish Planeta in Mongolia. There are a few stories around this journey that I cannot confirm that they are real, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. The first is that the motorcycles that they've got were actually 5, not 3, as they mentioned in the video. And the reason of that is because the motorcycles were given from BMW and they cannot afford any failure, so they wanted to be sure that at least 2 motorcycles will reach the final destination, which was New York. The second is about KTM. As you know, or maybe you don't, but first they asked KTM for motorcycles, again for 5 motorcycles. But also they asked for a sponsorship for $1 million. And because KTM is not that big company as BMW, they just said we cannot afford it. But in the video it was stated that the KTM said that they don't trust in their motorcycle and they don't believe that the motorcycles will make it. Here might say, Pavlin, this is absolutely bullshit, but don't forget that these are not a random guys like me and you decided to ride around the world and ask BMW or KTM for $1 million. Ian McGregor was a famous actor at that time. He's still famous and he just completed the Star Wars series, so his commissions were way more than that. And just because he decided to make something different for himself, it doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be paid. You might not know, but Charlie Borman is also an actor. He started his career in 1972 when he was only 6 years old. Since then, he has had a number of different roles and he is also a British TV presenter and travel writer. With this, I don't want to say that BMW GS are bad motorcycles or what Ian McGregor and Charlie Borman did was fake. No, absolutely not. They were the pioneers. They were my heroes. These are the first people that ever show us what exactly is to travel with motorcycles. As I told you in many videos, they were the spark that I needed to burn my dreams and start traveling with a motorcycle. But the reality, the truth behind all of this was a little bit different. And to say today that BMW GS is the ultimate travel machine is just too much. Alright, you know the story, but let's now face the reality and go back again to these BMW GS motorcycles. They are air-cooled, they are simple, reliable, affordable, they've got drive shaft and you can load a lot of luggage, right? Let's start with the first. They are air-cooled. This is started like a big pro or big plus for these motorcycles. But what about if you have to ride it in very hot environment? Somewhere in the desert, in the sun, in the traffic, when you cannot move with more than 5 kilometers per hour? What about if you have to ride it in the deep mud and all of these cylinder heads are covered with mud? They became like a bricks. By the way, this is happening with a friend of mine, and the motorcycle started to overheat because it cannot be cooled because of this mud everywhere. What about in all of these situations? So I know that most of the owners of BMW will tell you that, oh, they never overheat. They never overheat when you have a normal riding conditions. But when you have to stay in one place, ticking all the time for a long period of time, there is no way to survive it. I've got a whole video on this topic, air-cooled or water-cooled, and if you haven't, you can watch it here. The second was that they are simple. If we're talking about models 1200 and 1150, because these are the models that are listed like the best adventure motorcycle or the ultimate machines, there is nothing simple on it. The only simple procedure that you can make in terms of maintenance is to change the spark plugs because of the position of the cylinders on the side. Or maybe you'll be able to adjust the valves. If you know how. For anything else, you'll need a garage and a mechanic with a special knowledge. Do you know that these models comes with a dry clutch? Which means that it basically is the same like the clutch in your car, but way smaller, and it is very easy to burn it when you need to ride on very slow speed, when the engine overheat, when you ride in the traffic, in the mud, in the sand, in the technical off-roads. Many owners did it. You can find more than enough examples. And do you know that when you finally burn your clutch, or when your clutch finish, and it will finish one way or another, to change the clutch, you have to split the whole engine. You have to open it like a walnut, like this, and change the disc, the clutch discs. It is very difficult, expensive procedure that not everyone can make. On the other hand, with the rest of the motorcycles, you can do it very easy, even on the road. I have done it a few times on the road. The third was that they're reliable. Like any other branded model on the market, they've got their own issues. Fork recall, overheating problem, losing power, using engine oil, and many more. There is no one motorcycle that got no issues. Each one of the models got some pros and cons. The fourth was that it has a drive shaft and was started like a great option for motorcycle traveling. And I will agree that it is a great option until it is not. Sooner or later it will break. If you do your regular maintenance, it won't, but then it will cost you a lot of money. But even so, it is not a guarantee that it's not going to break. If you have a broken chain or tightened chain or compromised link in your chain, you will find a spare in every motorcycle shop around the world. But with the drive shaft, it's a different story. You'll need a specific spare parts. And if you don't have it with you, which I hardly believe, because people trust so much on the drive shafts, and you travel outside of Europe or USA, you'll need at least 2 weeks time to find the parts and to be shipped to your location. And if you don't have these 2 weeks, that is mean that your trip will stop. And the last was that with these BMW GS motorcycles you can carry a lot of luggage. But who told you that this is a plus? In my opinion, the heavier you are, the difficult is going to be. And this is the reality. And also I understand that with the new models like 1250, all of the problems that I have listed with the dry clutch, now they have a wet clutch, with the air cooled, now they have a water cooled engine, the clutch is moved on the front part of the engine, it's easy to replace it. All of these problems are solved. So this could be now the best adventure motorcycle or the ultimate machine. No, because now because of all of this electronics that they've got, people are still afraid to go with these motorcycles outside of Europe. It took me a lot of time to cover the first point, I'm really sorry about it, but the rest will be shorter. The second is that you need adventure modifications. Bigger petrol tank, different exhausts, crash guards, bush plates and hundreds more gadgets. You have to make your motorcycle like a Christmas tree, otherwise you cannot travel. This is completely nonsense. You can take any bike you like and just travel with it. Yes, you'll need some changes and modifications, but you wouldn't know what exactly before you start traveling with this motorcycle. Actually, I have a whole video on this topic. If you haven't, you can watch it here. The third bad piece of advice that you can hear is to have hard or soft luggage. The advice that everyone gives is based only on his or her experience. The reality is that the luggage system that you are going to use on your trips needs to be customized exactly for you. For example, if you travel alone on adventure trips, it will be better to have a soft luggage. If you travel with passenger only around Europe, it is going to be a good option to have side panniers, because you wouldn't be able to have all the clothes and the stuff that you need in. So it doesn't matter who you listen, the example always is going to be wrong, because it will be based on the opinion of this person. If you ask me, I'll tell you soft luggage definitely, but if you travel with your wife, will be completely wrong. If you ask James, for example, he can tell you hard panniers, but if you go to the dirt roads, it's going to be catastrophe. That's why this advice is always wrong. The fourth bad piece of advice is to buy tires that last longer, if possible the whole trip. But the reality is that the softer the tires are, the better they will hold your motorcycle on the road, and of course they will finish quicker. Another factor that wears the tires quicker or provides more wear tear process is the design of the protector. It is very well known that Nobis finished faster than the street tires, but also a proven fact that with Nobis tires you will have a better traction in almost every riding condition, every weather condition, if you want to say. With the street tires, yeah, you will have more mileage, but your traction on the dirt road will be compromised. In sand and mud will be terrible. So yes, if you choose a normal street road tires, they will last longer, just because the protector is different and they've got a lot of plastic on it. In my opinion, you have to buy the tires not because of their longevity, you have to buy it because of their quality. They might be street tires, but with mostly rubber on it, so they will hold perfectly your motorcycle. But on a long trips, you never know what kind of conditions you're going to face. But again, if you want to have only street tires, let it be street tires. But they are tires and tires. For MotoGP guys, finish the tires for just 2 hours because they are mostly rubber. They stick very well. So everything needs to be done with the idea in your mind. The tires that you're going to buy are the only connection or traction between your motorcycle and the road surface. I honestly prefer to spend more money on tires, but to know that I have a better traction instead of paying for broken motorcycle or even worse for medical bills for myself. The fifth bad piece of advice is to choose speed over reliability. I have heard many even experienced travelers talking that they prefer to have one motorcycle over another because with the first they can ride with 150-60 kilometers per hour and travel faster. Well, I also bought a few motorcycles because of their power and top speed, But I was 20 years old and these were sports bikes. They've got completely different purpose. In my opinion, traveling and speed do not match very well. I will always prefer to see the world with 90 instead of 150 kilometers per hour. But it is just me and I might be wrong. Now, if you remember, at the beginning of the video, I told you something about the reality, right? Now you can take this bad piece of advice that I gave you and apply it to the reality. If you don't know how, it is actually very easy. Find a few people who really travel, international long-distance travelers, not weekend riders, and apply these 5 bad advices to their riding style. What kind of motorcycles they've got, what kind of gear they used, where they travel, what tires, everything that I told you. And you'll be surprised from the results. As usual, thank you very much for watching. If you want to learn more, check the rest of the videos on the channel. I have more than 1000. If you want to learn but you don't have the time, you might consider joining my online course. Over there, for only 8 hours, you will be able to learn the most important and finally start with your dream adventures. Yes, it will cost you money, but at the moment I have it on 50% discount. All the details will be linked in the description down below. See you next time. Ciao.